So many roads. At the height of COVID, I drove a gentleman from a nearby university to the Indianapolis airport. Many of my most interesting rides have happened this way. The trip takes roughly an hour, so when they are willing to talk, I get to hear from some of the most fascinating people I've ever knowingly crossed paths with. It's like a free course or a private lecture given by the brightest minds on a myriad of topics. This particular man had been visiting a relative and was on his way back home, which happened to be on the East Coast. As we began conversing, it came out that he had recently returned from or was about to leave for an overseas speaking engagement. Intrigued, I began asking questions regarding the kind of work he did. The man explained to me that he was an economist as well as an author. At some point, he had relayed to me the title of his most recent book, so when he got out of my car, I was able to Google him thoroughly. His resume was far more impressive than he let on. Not only had he penned many books, but he was also a world-leading expert in his field, frequently traveling the globe to give lectures. He had served as a speechwriter to multiple U.S. presidents and was affiliated as a fellow with an Ivy League school. His accomplishments and activities went on, but I considered those the highlights. Except for one other. Not long after he got in my car, the man asked about good places to go for a run in the area. As we discussed my preferred locations, and running as an activity in general, he threw out what I considered to be an impressive amount of mileage that he regularly logged. That might not sound like anything out of the ordinary or some major accomplishment, but did I mention he was in his 80s? As I spend a ton of time in my car each day, one of the most common things I see is people running, jogging, or walking. They are my heroes. Few other things make me smile like that does, especially when I'm fighting what feels like the worst of humanity on the road. We all know how hard it is to run. It sucks. In the end, it may benefit us mentally and physically, but in the meantime, it hurts. It's also time-consuming. Especially if you travel to different locations because you don't want to stare at the same scenery every time. Psychologically, that matters. Just to set aside the time, get yourself prepared, and then take that first step towards hundreds more is a major accomplishment. It really is. I'm proud of every one of those people I see doing it every day, and I wish I could tell each of them. I do in my head as I drive by. I try to run every other day, but just like everyone else, it's a struggle. When I do, I refuse to listen to music or podcasts because I consider that time alone with myself imperative. There are always going to be distractions and noise, so why not take the time to acknowledge your thoughts when you have an opportunity to do so? Often, for me, those thoughts revolve around how much running hurts. Whether it's the limitations that my aging body is imposing on me, or the elements I'm fighting at that moment, it's hard not to dwell on them when they are staring you in the face. Generally, however, those thoughts prove to be beneficial. Aside from time, one of my greatest adversaries when I run is the wind. This happens about a quarter of the time, and inevitably will play out the same. About a mile into my run, once the initial adrenaline is worn off, I'll realize how much harder I'm working when I go in a certain direction. I'll acknowledge that it's the wind, and then fight myself on seeking a route that spares me the struggle. After convincing myself that the extra difficulty will benefit me in the long run, I embrace it and hunker down. Then, either because I have too much time to think, or because I'm looking for something to distract me from the wind's brutal attack, I find myself revisiting the situation as a metaphor. I say revisiting because it's the same thought every time. Running itself is perhaps the most apt metaphor I've found for life in general. It sounds cliché, I know, but it's true. As you take your first steps, you start off slow until you can build speed and momentum. Once you've found a comfortable pace, you settle in and maintain it with a specific goal or goals in mind. You're going to face challenges along the way. Plenty of times, I've finished what were supposed to be otherwise uneventful and routine runs, bloody, bruised, overheated, frozen, or before my intended destination. I never foresaw or intended any of those outcomes. As you get near the end of the run, you are infinitely more tired than you were when you started. You then finish by either obtaining your objective or by being forced out prematurely. Pretty emblematic of life, if you ask me. I get almost angry at first when I realize I'm running into the wind. It feels like I'm wasting energy and that my progress is stalling. But when I allow myself to stop and think about it, I become almost grateful. I will come out of it stronger. I'm still getting my mileage in, but my muscles are being given an extra challenge that will result in greater strength going forward. My mind is also being trained to face adversity with the knowledge that it's ultimately beneficial and that I can accomplish more than I intend or hope by braving the storm. The same can be said for running uphill or in the rain. Some of the best races of my youth came in such conditions. Were it not for the wind, rain, or elevation and the prior experience I had with them, I would not have performed as well as I did, advancing to the next course in the process. And the next course is important to me. The next course is where we get new scenery. The next course is where we learn new things about ourselves and our abilities. So if you run, or jog, or walk, I'm proud of you. I know it isn't easy, but it's more than just whatever your initial goal was. And I hope that not only do you achieve that goal, but that you make it to the next course as well. The UBeerOsophy. And now, a haiku. All of your steps count, and if you listen to them, their math is profound. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Albert Camus.